Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Ray Petree, and this is the best podcast from pillar to post in all of professional wrestling, Petree's Pit. I'm joined once again by my co-host, my tag team partner, the Arn Anderson and my Tully Blanchard, JDO Jordan. Talk to him, brother.
What's going on, brother? What's going on, everybody? Got a fun episode for you. Got a lot to talk about. Yeah, let's get into it.
Absolutely. Happy holidays. This is the Christmas edition of Petree's Pit. And my girlfriend got us a great Christmas present this year. She bought tickets to Holiday Bash in Washington, D.C., the show that was Wednesday. It included a Rampage taping that aired. We're recording this on Saturday, so last night. And entertainment and sports arena in Washington, D.C. It's the home of the Washington Mystics. It's a 4,200 seat arena. We got to see AEW Dynamite and Rampage, a few dark matches. And this was Jordan's first Dynamite taping. We've been to a house show together, a house rules show in the Roanoke Valley. But Jordan's never seen Dynamite before live. And, this was my third time, my third go around. Jordan, what did you think about the overall experience of a TV taping for AEW?
I thought it was a lot of fun, man. It was a lot of action. You got to see a lot of big names. And it was a little different than I expected, obviously, because having watched AEW on television for so long, it was in the bigger arenas. So in my mind, that's kind of what I was expecting. But then, going into this arena, it's a smaller venue, which actually I thought for AEW worked a lot better. I mean, it was pretty much a packed house. The crowd was into almost every match, which always adds to a show. A dead crowd just really takes the fun out of a show. But everybody was into it and got to see some really, really good matches. And one particular match that was probably like my favorite match I've ever seen live before. So the overall experience was great. It was very entertaining.
We've been hearing for weeks now that AEW is going to transition to running smaller venues in 2025. The company had some, they didn't have the equipment necessarily to run smaller venues. I think supposedly their ring lights weren't really fitting for, having the ring that close to the entrances. Typically AEW has the tunnels. They're on a stage. The stage has a ramp that leads to the ring. In the case of this episode, the tunnels were maybe 15 feet away from the ring. It was a very quick turnaround for the wrestlers to come out. And, like we said, it was a 4,200 seat arena. Some of it was curtained off, and there were 3,000 people. So close to capacity. It sounded great. The acoustics were awesome. The crowd was electric. Just in terms of the wrestling, if you go to an AEW Dynamite taping, at least currently, because Rampage is still a product that's being recorded, probably not for much longer. Supposedly, the rumor is it's being canceled at the end of the year. But, you get the Dynamite taping, which is 2 hours of wrestling, and then you have another additional hour of wrestling for Rampage. I mean, it's good bang for your buck. You get a lot of good wrestling. I highly recommend anyone go to an AEW show if you're able to. If there's one close enough to you that you can travel, highly recommend it. It's so much fun. And our crowd in particular was great. I mean, I don't know, maybe a lot of that had to do with the acoustics, how close everything was, but I just think the crowd was really excited to see some wrestling, weren't they?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was from kind of from the opening match, man. It was just everybody was into it. Everybody was enjoying themselves. They were making their voices heard. And yeah, the closer setup, I don't think it took anything away from it. Now obviously I don't know how the wrestlers feel about it. To me, you would think that it would be better for them because they're going in and they're not seeing just these huge areas of curtained off seats. And this one there was crowd pretty much all the way around them.
Yeah.
So for them, I would think it would be a lot better. Obviously, you know, the hearing the crowd and everything. But yeah, it was overall a really good setup. And if this is kind of what they're going to be doing going forward, then I think it's only going to add to the quality of the shows.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as, and you think too about like the camera work. I mean, in these other big venues where they're having to, close off so much of it, the camera can only show certain parts because you don't want to be showing just these empty, dark areas of the arena. Whereas this one, they could kind of show a bunch of other places. So overall, it was a really good setup, a really good visual. Having watched some of it on TV to see how it looked really good, and I think this is going to be a really good model for them going forward if they're able to to keep it up. But it's been something that everybody's been kind of saying for a long time. Like, why are you running these giant stadiums that you can't fill?
Mhm.
You want something that looks good, and this is, I think, the way they need to go.
Yeah, I mean, wrestling as a form of entertainment really relies on the crowd reaction more so than any other live sport. Maybe other than or event other than maybe music. And I wouldn't even really say that. It really relies on the crowd's reaction to gauge what's successful and what's not. And in the last year and a half or so, we've seen a lot of episodes where there's no light on the crowds because there's so many empty seats they don't want to obfuscate the fact that, or they want to obfuscate the fact that there's not fans in the arena. So for us, the lights were on, you could see the crowd. You could, I mean, if you were looking, you could find us in the crowd because you can see the entire audience. And like you said, with more people in the arena, you can, there's more angles you can hit in the match and things can look a little bit more dynamic at times. Um, yeah, I mean, it was a really great environment. If you watch Rampage, somewhere during the Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale match, they dimmed the lights because so many people were. It was just so late, and so many people were leaving with kids and things like that. So they. But I mean, through most of Rampage and all of Dynamite, you can see the crowd, you can see everyone's reaction, how excited they were. It was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. Jordan touched on it, briefly hinted at it. We had the uh, incredible pleasure of watching Darby Allin versus Will Ospreay share the ring for the Continental Classic. Um, this was just shy of 20 minutes, I'd imagine. I don't know exactly how long it was, but I feel like I've seen a handful of really good matches at live events, both on televised shows and at house shows. And this was easily the best match I've ever seen live. And I've rewatched it on television, and I think it holds up. I would say probably a match of the year contender. What'd you think about this, Jordan?
Well, like I said before, man, it's the best match I've ever seen live. Also, just when both guys get in the ring, and before they even lock up, before they even touch, the crowd just gets on their feet and starts going crazy. You only see them do that for a handful of matches. Two guys who are seen as main event guys in the company, two guys who you could see being a world champion at some point in the future. Um, and yeah, it's just from the jump, man, it was just action packed. It wasn't too crazy. Obviously a Darby Allin match, he's probably gonna at least try to kill himself a couple times, but for the most part, there was great wrestling involved, some great aerial stuff, but not too much. Sometimes Will Ospreay's matches can be a little crazy with all the stuff that they do. But it was a great paced match. A lot of, I mean, the crowd was just from start to finish was into it. There's hardly anybody sitting down. I mean, it was just crazy from all the stuff they were doing. And yeah, just one of the best matches that I've ever seen in person.
Yeah, the crowd was, I don't think it really even translated to television. The crowd was deafening. Some of the chants were just, you couldn't hear anything. You couldn't hear the person next to you talking. It was just the environment was great. People, and I think you have to give credit to AEW. They announced this match, I think 3 weeks ago, maybe even longer. as sort of a featured attraction of this show. And while it wasn't the main event, it was certainly the match people were most excited for. And that's how you market a live show, is you have to give people something to be excited about that builds anticipation. And like you said, people were on their feet for the entrances, before the entrances. When it said Will Ospreay versus Darby Allin up next, people got on their feet because it's what they came there to see, and it delivered. It over delivered. It was better than I expected it to be, which is saying a lot because I love Darby Allin, and we all know how great Will Ospreay is in the ring. And Darby Allin is a guy, a lot of people couldn't perform these counters on Will Ospreay that Darby Allin could and did. I mean, the Storm Zero into the Code Red was breathtaking. The coffin drop onto the ring, it wasn't just the apron, it was the frame of the ring, and his back hit bounces off. The Styles Clash onto the floor. I mean, what a phenomenal match. Dave Meltzer gave it 5 stars. I don't know what that really means anymore, but it's cool to say we saw a 5-star match, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't think it's greatest to give that match 5 stars. Just, and like you said, all the stuff that those guys were doing, man, it was one thing after another, but there was it was a great pacing match. It wasn't, balls to the walls from start to finish. It was, they would do these moves and then they would sell them like they hurt. In Darby's case, it probably did hurt because probably almost broke his back. But yeah, just great chemistry between those two, and it makes you want to see them face each other again.
Yeah.
It's not like a match where it's like, oh, I don't really want to see that again because it wasn't that exciting. I mean, this match, like, I would want to tune in to watch that match again on TV. But yeah, just overall phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just a spot fest. There were a lot of high spots, but there was a lot in between, a lot of interstices where they were resting or recovering, or it was just phenomenal, and it was within the confines of the Continental Classics rules, and they didn't use every weapon in their arsenal. There were some things they did pull some punches. They didn't do exactly everything they could have. You know, a lot of criticism has been levied at AEW by people like Eric Bischoff, by people like Disco Inferno or Jim Cornette, that so often Tony Khan just makes matches. And I understand that from a television perspective, from a storyline perspective, but then you go to one of these shows and all you want to do is see the best guys in the ring together, because they don't have house shows at AEW. You want to go to a show, you have to go to a television taping. And so, yeah, I mean, sure, I'd like a storyline, I also just want to see good guys get in the ring together and ply their trade. And this didn't have a story. Thankfully, the Continental Classic kind of gave it that passe kind of attitude where they didn't need to tell a story going into this, really. But this is fantastic. If you don't get this kind of match at every AEW show, but you're guaranteed to get one certified banger. And this was our certified banger for this episode. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, and I would say too, going off of that point, that you want to see the best guys wrestle, and I would argue that that's something that WWE doesn't do enough.
Yeah.
Is that they only have the main guys wrestle on the pay-per-views and stuff like that, which in a sense I understand. You want people to tune into the shows to watch the big stars, but every now and then on TV, you got to have these guys compete against each other. It's one thing to hear them talk and to further a story if they're involved in one, but you also want to see these guys compete. And it doesn't seem like WWE right now, except for obviously the Raw Netflix show, which are treating like a WrestleMania.
Mhm.
Other than that, you really don't see the main guys wrestle on the show. Like, you would never see on a WWE, on Raw or SmackDown or anything like that. You would not see, just for example, like Cody Rhodes wrestling Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
A match of that magnitude. You would never see it. They wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I understand you can't do that every single week.
Yeah.
But you want to do it every now and again to give people a reason to tune into these shows.
Mhm.
And that's something I think WWE doesn't do enough. AEW obviously here, did it. It was great, and I loved it, and it makes me want to watch again to
Yeah.
see what they put out there. So it was just, yeah, it was great, great stuff. I'm glad I was able to see it live and in person.
Yeah. Um, I remember, this is going back a ways, but when CM Punk and John Moxley wrestled on Dynamite, which ultimately proved to be kind of an inconsequential match because they ran it back at All Out, I guess. But a lot of people criticize AEW's decision to have that match main event an episode of Dynamite, and okay, yeah, I mean, sure, you say that for a pay per view, but at the same time, when I was a kid, I couldn't afford every pay per view, and I'm sure there are lots of kids who watch AEW that can't afford a $50 pay per view every other month or every month. It's nice to have cool matches on television because for some people, that's all the wrestling you get to see, and that's something that I don't think WWE for a long time has cared about, and sure, you want people to the big matches are on pay per views, but man, you know you go to a show and if for AEW there are no house shows like we said, so you can really only go to a pay per view or a television taping. You want to see the best guys possible get in that ring because how often do you get that opportunity? If you live in a market like we do, where they certainly will never come to the city we live in, so we're talking anywhere from 3 hours away, and that's not that often either. So I mean, this was this match alone was worth admission. And then you got everything else, which we had to see Mercedes Monet and Anna Jay, and we got to see Brody King on Rampage and Willow Nightingale, and we got to see an MJF promo doing vintage MJF stuff. All around, just a great experience. What performers that we saw really surprised you live that on television maybe they don't pop out so much?
Um, well, I think for one thing, I would say probably Darby a little bit, even though I know Darby, Darby is a good wrestler, but you kind of only ever think about him as the guy who just, throws himself through glass and, you know, almost kills himself every other week. But you watch that match with Ospreay, and I mean, it was back and forth, and he was, going toe to toe with Will Ospreay. And like we said, it wasn't a spot fest. It wasn't them just trying to outdo the other. It was actually like moves that you could see them doing to try to win a match. Moves like reversing other moves and things like that. So he really surprised me with that. Um, I would say another one, even though I already know he's a great wrestler, but I think Shelton Benjamin, seeing him still be able to wrestle like he does at his age, I mean, just phenomenal to be able to see, um, what he can do. Uh, yeah, those are probably the two that I think stuck out to me. I mean, I didn't really think there was a bad match. I mean, there were some matches that I didn't think, that obviously the people involved weren't, main event superstars. But as far as the wrestling goes, I don't recall there being a match that I thought was like, wow, that was terrible. I thought all the matches were pretty good. Everybody was pretty, pretty engaged, and there weren't a lot of botches and things like that. So I thought everything was pretty good.
Brody King really stuck out to me as a guy who really got the crowd involved and really put the shine on Commander in that Rampage match. If I mean, a lot of people don't watch Rampage, so that's unfortunate. But I mean, Commander, he really made Commander look like a good white meat underdog baby face. The comeback was exciting, even though Brody King's not a heel, just the way he wrestles, and he's got a really great connection with the crowd. And me and you were really invested in that match and really invested in Brody King, where I don't think, we like him. We both like him in the ring, but we're not big Brody King fans. Um, but that was a good match, and I was excited to see him live, and I want to see him again now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. I've liked Brody King. I've liked him more as I've seen him. When I first kind of saw him, as first started watching him wrestle, I wasn't really too invested. But lately, I've become more invested in it. I think a lot of people have too. Um, I will say the one thing too that kind of stuck out to me was with the Hurt Syndicate when they came out. It's like they're supposed to be portraying heels. I think,
Yeah.
but when they came out there, I mean, they're like getting cheered out of the building.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole they're walking out there and everybody's chanting along to the We Hurt People to their entrance music, and it's funny to me. It's like I think they're trying to portray heels, but at the same time, they also kind of play to the crowd as baby faces would. So I don't really know, what direction they're going to go in. But I think the fact that the fans are kind of so invested in that, in the Hurt Syndicate, I think is a good sign for them going forward. That they're prominent and they've kind of made them look prominent. They've made, Shelton Benjamin look like a force of almost to an equal level of Bobby Lashley.
Hmm.
Even though Bobby hasn't wrestled a ton yet, but in the matches he's had, he looks like Bobby Lashley should, like a dominant force.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think too. I mean, to me, that kind of stuck out to me more than the main event did. Uh, even though the main event was okay, but just seeing it live was cool with the 6 man with the Death Riders and with Hangman, Switchblade, and Orange Cassidy. But I don't. It was fun to see them, but as far as the storyline goes, I don't really really don't care about it that much. I mean, there's just really no direction to it. I mean, I don't really know where they're gonna go with it. Um, I know, like we've said before, we kind of think that Darby's going to be the one to dethrone Moxley because they've kind of, set things up that way. But right now, it's just kind of seems like it's directionless. Like it's just the Death Riders coming out, attacking people every week. They still haven't said why they're doing this. What's the reason? What's the catalyst behind it? There's really no rhyme or reason to it. So it still felt kind of aimless, but live and in person, it was cool to see all of them
Yeah.
clash. But going forward, watching it on television, I'm still just not that invested in it.
It's not. Oh, I tackle a few things. First, the Hurt Syndicate, they beat Mark Briscoe and Daniel Garcia down like dogs in the street, and they're supposed to be two of the most over baby faces in the company, and they still got cheered when they left. So it goes to show people just want to cheer the Hurt Syndicate because they didn't get the chance to when they were the Hurt Business in the WWE. They didn't get their just due. They didn't get to experience the admiration of the crowd live. Now they're getting the chance, and it's a good thing, and I'm happy for them. And they look great. And we've talked about this before. We both wish Bobby Lashley, MVP, and Shelton Benjamin were in the driver's seat instead of the Death Riders because they're that entertaining. In terms of the Death Riders itself and this feud going on against Hangman, Switchblade, and Orange Cassidy, it doesn't help your case when you're booking Moxley in matches down the pike. Like we know he's going to be at Wrestle Kingdom. We know he's going to be in the main event of that January 1st show in Asheville, North Carolina, probably against FTR and Adam Copeland. And I don't think he's going to do that without the championship, right? So your suspension, your disbelief is not suspended. You know he's going to win World's End or leave World's End as the champion. So, well, I mean, why do we care what these guys? They can't even get on the same page to want to fight John Moxley. Why would we think that they can succeed? It just hasn't been booked well. Quite frankly, I don't even know if it should be on World's End. I think World's End would be better off if the main event was the conclusion of the Continental Classic, because that's what this whole month has been building towards. Every week we're inundated with Continental Classic matches. Why not just have that be the main event of World's End? And World's End is just the Continental Classic pay-per-view. Um, I don't really understand what the benefit is. I mean, and like you said, it was great to see all those guys. In terms of like having that bucket list of live performers you want to see. For me, that checked off a couple of them. I've wanted to see Moxley. I've wanted to see Jay White. We've both seen Hangman before. I've seen Orange Cassidy, I think, at every show I've ever been to. So this is like my fourth time seeing him live. But Jay White and John Moxley, that was great. Impact, that was awesome. They actually walked through the crowd right in front of us. I mean, we could have reached out and touched them probably. It was really cool to see them so close. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really care about the feud, and the Hook, Christian Cage, Patriarchy feud. We saw a tag match. I don't really care about that either. But it was good to see those performers, right?
Yeah, it's. And I think that's one of the things about a live show is that, when you're watching it on TV, you're just like, well, I don't really care about this and change the channel. But when you're seeing it live and in person, you're more invested
Yeah,
in it. So naturally, you're gonna be like, oh, this is awesome. I like to see. Like I've never seen Christian before, so getting to see him was really cool. And then obviously, I've seen Hook before, but haven't seen Shibata. So, getting to see those guys. But going back to the world's everything with Death Riders, it also too is like, you know, say any of those guys were to win, where do you really go from there?
yeah,
Like they haven't built any of those guys. I mean, obviously, Hangman's a former champion, so you could see that. Jay White, has that cachet sort of. Orange Cassidy, I don't really know about him as a world champion, but he's popular with the crowd, so he has that going for him. But if you put this much time and this much investment you know, into this Death Riders thing, they haven't done a good job of building up anybody that you would want to see beat them.
yeah,
Like Ospreay and Darby both. I would love to see either one of those guys win the title. You know, Hangman, it would be cool to see him win again, but I mean, what has he really done? He's just kind of been walking around like wide-eyed and you know pissed off at everything. Jay White, they really haven't built him up to that level to where him winning the title would be a significant thing. So they haven't built these guys up for you to just be like, man, I really want him to win the title. It's just there's no there's no interest at all. And again, I think that's as far as a story, that's kind of where that issue becomes
yeah,
a problem when you don't have anything behind the reason why these guys are wanting to fight each other and why they're wanting to win the title. It all just kind of falls by the wayside.
yeah,
And I think that's why we both said like Darby winning it would be cool because he's kind of that underdog. He's kind of seen as that, that face of AEW, so to speak. He's, one of the pillars and he's a guy who winning the title would be awesome.
yeah.
And I know that, you want to kind of spread that out a little bit. You don't want to do it right away. But, if you're going to have Moxley hold the title for a little bit longer, you need to have some people in these, matches that he defends against that people are like, oh my God, this guy might actually beat him for the title.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't seem like they've done that at all up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, you have to tell cohesive stories. If you're going to plot this out for a long time and you want it to be the crux of AEW's, programming for the next several months, you have to plot it out and have him engage with people in meaningful ways that excites the crowd. And it can't just be in 6-man tag matches where the baby faces don't work together well. And unfortunately that's where this feud's at right now. I think they need more direction. They need more of a singular focus at a time. You think of Roman Reigns as a tribal chief. For the most part, he was focusing on one person at a time and telling stories and creating interest in each of those people to the point where you thought maybe they could really beat Roman Reigns for this title. And that goes back to turning people into baby faces that the crowds really want to cheer. And Moxley's not done that yet at all. I mean, maybe with Orange Cassidy, but Orange Cassidy's been beloved by the AEW audience for years now. It was just, and I don't think Orange Cassidy really got over to the point that he needed to be. He didn't seem like a believable champion. We still didn't think he would win. So maybe Adam Copeland is a step in the right direction if that's the direction they're going. Maybe he's the guy that can start to rear this in the right direction as the babyface they need. But, right now, this is kind of it's just another step. It's just another check mark for him. 3 more guys to beat, during this reign. And I don't really care about that. But, maybe if we're lucky, this will continue the Hangman and the Switchblade feud down the road, and they can have some more because they're really great in the ring together. I think both of us would agree on that. But, anyways,
One thing I will say though, kind of going back to the Hurt Syndicate point, is they do have potential there for if those two groups were ever to come face to face. That would be, I think, something that people would want to be interested in.
yeah,
Because, they're obviously the Hurt Syndicate's popular. People like Bobby Lashley, they like Shelton and MVP, and they don't like the Death Riders. So I think, if that were ever to happen, and there's no telling if they will or not, but I mean, you could probably imagine the pop when those two groups come face to face.
yeah.
Bobby Lashley and John Moxley coming face to face. That would be something I think the crowd would be extremely interested in. So there's potential there, but yeah, as of right now, there's no real direction on where it's going.
Um, any last thoughts about this event we went to? This was, I mean, really special occasion. This is, one of my favorite moments of 2024 going to the show. And, we had a lot of fun. Anything else that stuck out to you before we move on?
No, I mean, I think we pretty much covered everything. I mean, I think we pretty much got to see almost every champion in the company, right? I mean, we saw Moxley, who's the world champion. We saw Garcia, who's TNT champion. Mercedes, who's TBS champion. Mariah May wasn't there in person, but Private Party came out on Rampage as the tag champions. So very well represented there.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. And I think we saw Willow, who, as you've said before, is, one probably the best babyface in wrestling right now. Just overall positive attitude.
Yeah.
The crowd always gets behind her. So it was cool to see her. Hopefully they'll do some more things with her down the line. But yeah, I think, just everything was awesome. The small venue was great, and hopefully it continues.
Yeah, I mean, Sunday they're recording this week's episode of Dynamite in the Hammerstein Ballroom. It's going to air on Christmas Day. I think it's called Dynamite on 34th Street, I think. Another special episode. I'm really excited to see that event in the Hammerstein Ballroom. I know Collision that will air tonight, at the time of recording this, will also be in the Hammerstein Ballroom. I'm excited to see that. So, yeah, and I know the venue in Asheville I haven't looked down the line how many of these venues are smaller, but I know the Asheville venue is not very big. So, I think this is going to be the direction they're going in for the foreseeable future. And I think this is a good move. I think this is going to help the television look a lot better, feel a lot better. And I think this is going to benefit the wrestlers a lot. Because how do you know what's succeeding and what's not when you can't see the crowd or you can't hear the crowd really well? Those are really important things. So this was a momentous episode. I'm glad we got to see this kind of change in stage design. But shifting gears, Saturday night's main event was last Saturday. Both of us are huge classic wrestling fans. Both of us love what's the word I'm looking for? Stage set wrestling, like Jim Crockett Promotions, old school WWF. I think both of us love the way wrestling used to be presented. And this was a throwback to the original Saturday night's main event presentation, from the logo to the lack of a Titantron entering through the crowd. The old Jim Johnston music was used as the introduction. And I'll talk to him, Jordan, tell him about the big reveal from Cody Rhodes.
Well, yeah. So I think I said it on here before. I love wrestling belts. I have a pretty decent collection of them. And one of the belts that I actually have is the old school Winged Eagle WWE Championship. And in the main event, Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens for the WWE Championship, Cody came out with the classic Winged Eagle Championship, which was so cool to see. And it just to me it highlights kind of what the belts that they have now are lacking, which is just that detail, the cool visual. Something I wish they would they would go back to, but they're kind of set on their ways of what they do now. But it was really cool to see it, and I'm kind of glad. I'm glad that Kevin Owens, it's the belt is still involved in it in their feud. Kevin Owens has been walking around with it. He's been taking it to. He was at the Netflix Raw, press conference thing. He was there with it, and so I'm glad it's still around. But yeah, it's just such a cool thing to see the old classic WWE Championship look.
This was billed as a one night only event for Cody to come out with the Winged Eagle belt, pay homage to the champions of the mid '80s like Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, who held the belt on Saturday night's main event. It was definitely a replica belt. I mean, it would have been cool if they could have got a ring worn belt with the original WWF logo on it. It was like they just went to the warehouse and pulled a replica belt and were like, "Here you go, Cody." But it is cool. And after the match, Kevin Owens delivered a package pile driver to Cody Rhodes. Cody was stretchered out, and Kevin Owens left with the belt. Like Jordan said, he brought it to the Raw on Netflix press conference last night on SmackDown. He had it over his shoulder for a promo, pre-tape promo. Looks like it's going to be something he's going to be carrying around for the foreseeable future, maybe until Cody Rhodes can defeat him and reclaim it. I think both of us agree, man. I mean, right now AEW has the best world championship belt in wrestling, but damn, if they brought the Winged Eagle belt back, I mean, your champion just looks that much better. Not just because of how the belt looks, but because of the people who held the title, the people who carried that belt and gave it so much prestige, like Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior. Did Shawn Michaels hold it, I guess?
Yeah.
Stone Cold Steve Austin held it briefly, right? Until it switched over to the Big
Yeah.
Eagle.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he the next night on Raw, they gave him the new WWE Championship.
Yeah.
That they went with throughout the Attitude Era. So yeah, he won it from Michaels, and that was, I think, the last time it was involved in a match. But yeah, just great visuals, and yeah, I mean the AEW Championship is beautiful. And it's been one of my biggest criticisms of WWE is that their belts are, obviously they all look the same. They do the same design on the men's and women's championships, and it's just been such a downgrade from how they used to be. Even the spinner WWE Championship, which as it's an acquired taste, but I mean it looked different.
Yeah.
It didn't look just this generic bland championship that just has the company logo in the middle of it. It actually looks like prestigious. It actually had some detail to it. So it's something I would love if WWE were ever to go back and do something like that again. But yeah, as of right now, that's that's what you got. But you get to see Kevin Owens carried around, and hopefully it'll be something that stays around for a little while.
When Jordan says he collects belts, Jordan's got a fucking problem. All right. And maybe some professionals could intervene and I talked to him about this problem, but I just know when Jordan saw Cody Rhodes exit that tunnel with that belt around his waist, he was bricked up. I mean, this was a special moment. And a few months down the road, when we talk about our favorite things, this is going to be at the fucking top because, belts matter to this man, as they should. It's the hardware that represents the title that these guys hold. Just general thoughts on the presentation of Saturday night's main event. What did you like? What did you not like about the presentation and the matches we were given?
I mean, I obviously talked about the visuals, great visuals. From the way the ring looked, the referees dressing in the old school referee outfit, that was all great. Having Jesse Ventura on commentary as the heel commentator really kind of highlighted what the commentary team lacks now. They don't really have a true heel commentator, which I always thought added, some intrigue to the commentary. You kind of have that babyface commentator and the heel commentator kind of going back and forth. And yeah, as far as the matches and things like that, I mean it wasn't anything crazy, anything spectacular. Obviously Chelsea Green winning the women's U.S. championship was a big moment. Crowd popped for it. Um, was happy to see that for her because she's kind of, she's had the crowd behind her for a while. She does a lot. So it was good for her. Um, and yeah, just, to me, the one thing I think that stood out to me was, Liv Morgan, she defended her women's world championship against Io Sky, which I enjoyed the match a lot. Obviously I like Io Sky a lot. Liv's grown on me, as she's, done more of, her heel stuff. But the match was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, in one point in the match, I mean, Liv took a shot to the nose from from Io's knee that I think actually, broke her nose. Um, and yeah, it kind of highlighted to me like, man, it just would be great if they would have different people, champions wrestle different people. In particular, her, because she's obviously been going up against Rhea for so long now, and I think it's getting to the point where people are just getting tired of it. I mean, obviously, I like Rhea, I like Liv, but I wish they would, have them face other people. It would benefit both of them if they were able to wrestle other people. It would benefit the other women on the roster to be able to wrestle Liv, who's the champion, and Rhea, who's probably the face of the women's division there, or at least her and Charlotte are, neck and neck. But Rhea's obviously there now.
Yeah.
And it would benefit, somebody in particular like Rhea, who her style is she's, a powerhouse. And for her to have to keep going up against Liv, who's smaller, it limits, the stuff that she can do. And I think it would help improve her wrestling ability, which is, been a knock that she's had against her. So I think overall it would just benefit them to have them wrestle different people. And then in general, just have, different matches. I mean, they just, they have the same thing over and over again. But yeah, that match in particular was great for me. Obviously, Cody and Kevin was good. It was an okay match. It wasn't anything monumentous. It wasn't anything that was gonna send shockwaves through the company. It was just, it was a good throwback show, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess going forward, this is going to be a quarterly event for the WWE in conjunction with NBC and Peacock. So, is it a premium live event? Sort of, not really. Something in between a regular TV show and a premium live event. Good matches. Like you said, the Io Sky Liv Morgan match was good. Io Sky always delivers in the ring. She's phenomenal. And to your point, you need Liv Morgan to work with more women like Io Sky, as opposed to just with Rhea Ripley, because the women's division gets no shine when you're only featuring two women at a time in really the highest profile feud going on. So yeah, I like that a lot. It's unfortunate they're going back to the well with Rhea Ripley because they really need to start building new world championship caliber contenders. They just, you can't rely on Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair to bail you out of every scenario you have when things get stale. Because that's what's going to happen. Eventually, Charlotte Flair's going to come back, or Becky Lynch, and they're going to bail them out because they're huge stars and they have so much equity. But you can't keep doing that. They're getting up there. I mean, they're almost 40 years old, and just quite frankly, we've never had a blueprint for women's wrestlers succeeding over 40. It's I mean, Trish Stratus and Lita may be the exceptions, but they took huge absences. They were not wrestling year after year for over decades. So, it's not going to last that much longer. But I liked how this was presented. I loved the throwback, the nostalgia, which, is fine. For wrestling, it's okay to rely on nostalgia sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. Jesse Ventura was great. Exciting to see him back on WWE. I've never been a huge Jesse. If I go back and watch old shows, he's not my favorite color commentator, but he was great. He brought a lot to this show and a lot of credibility to it, a lot of energy. So, the next Saturday Night's main event is in January. It's going to be in San Antonio. And I look forward to seeing how the events from that first Netflix lead into this as we continue. I wonder if Seth Rollins and CM Punk are going to be on that show, um, or Roman Reigns. I'm excited to see that. Well, Jordan, is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off here?
Um, I would say the one thing I think going forward for Saturday night's main event um, would be that it's clear to that when WWE wants to, they can make a show as big as they want to make it,
Yeah.
it's evidenced by the Raw on Netflix show. I mean, and obviously that's something we'll talk about later on. But you look at all of the people who are going to be on it, the quality talent, the matches that they have lined up. When they want to, they can make a show big. And I think Saturday night's main event, if you're going to make this, you know, a recurring thing, then I think you need to have some of the bigger stars in the company. I mean, obviously you had Cody Rhodes on the show in the main event, so he's the champion. But to have guys like Roman, Punk, Cena in his last run, um, I think is something that they should do going forward. With this show and with other shows. I mean, you've got a lot of talent. You really need to use it. And as evidenced by the AEW show we were at. I mean, look at all the people who were on it. I mean, you pretty much had most of the main guys in the company on the show in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
And I know WWE kind of handicaps themselves because they have the brand split. But they move guys around. So have more of the big names on the shows. That's the way to draw the people in. And hopefully they'll do a little more of that, going forward.
Yeah, I hope John Cena's involved in this next Saturday night's main event. You know, I hope some of the matches are a little less predictable. I hope there's more, you know, I'd like to see a title change. Although I know at this one that Chelsea Green was crowned the U.S. Women's Champion, but I'd like to see some more excitement in this next event, some more unpredictability, and some bigger stars. Although this was a star-studded event. I mean, you had Cody, you had Gunter, you had Drew McIntyre. Um, One thing I'd like to say before we sign off is Drew McIntyre was in an interview with Busted Open last week, talked about the sacrifices that wrestlers make to travel the road to entertain fans. I don't know how much of it was a shoot or work, um, which is the beauty of it, but I highly recommend you all check it out. It's really um, illustrates why he's been featured the way he has, why he's been so successful. He's one of the best professional wrestlers alive. It's a really interesting insight into the sacrifices these guys make and the toll it takes on them. And I think it informs a lot of the character he's portraying right now, and it's worth checking out. So I leave you guys with that. As always, follow us on Twitter. Follow me on Blue Sky. All my bylines, the things I write, my reviews of AEW Dynamite are below in the description box. Like this video, comment, let us know what you think, thought about the episode. Let us know if you've ever been to an AEW show. Let us know what you thought about Saturday night's main event. And bonus question, let us know what the best match you've ever seen live is. I think for both of us, it's now Darby Allin and Will Ospreay. We'd like to know what the best match you guys have seen live is, and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see you guys be back next week for the next episode of Petree's Pit. But for now, I'm Ray. Talk to him, Jordan.
Top dogs out.